Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to another edition of the Rain Report. Joey and Lindsay with you as the Ontario Reign back at home, although briefly as they continue on a season-high 5-game road trip. And Lindsay, let's dive into all the action from this past weekend. 3 games in 3 days, pretty busy for Ontario, going through the Lone Star State in Cedar Park, Texas, and then on to San Antonio. But throughout those contests against the Stars and San Antonio Rampage, one thing really became prevalent, that Ontario was starting to find their stride and their identity playing Ontario Reign hockey.
Sure, absolutely. I thought in the first game on Friday night, the game really got away from them. They lost 5-4, kind of got into a special teams battle with Texas, a team that they don't want to do that against. Not a lot of positives coming out of that Friday night game, but Saturday, the Reign really got back to their hockey. I mean, I think that was the story, was just the way that over the weekend that they progressed. 2-1 OT loss, kind of took 2 late penalties at the end of the third period, resulting in a 5-on-3. Jack Flynn really didn't have any chance on that goal by Stransky, but admirable win on Sunday. I mean, the Reign had to travel after that loss, an hour to San Antonio, get on the bus, do it all over again in an afternoon game on a quick turnaround. A really gutsy win, Flynn's first AHL win, and on the weekend they take out 3 out of the 6 points, which, not everything's lost in a tough 3-on-3 weekend, and they come back here home.
The Reign went 1-1-1 over that 3-game and 3-day weekend, and now gets set to go back out on the road. They'll take on the Tucson Roadrunners in Tucson, Arizona this upcoming weekend. But Lindsay, to kind of go back on those points, especially on Sunday, they didn't act like a team that was playing their 3rd game in basically 2.5 days with that afternoon matchup. And head coach Mike Suthers mentioned that you could see it on the faces of the guys. They were starting to have fun, and they were starting to click in terms like they were figuring out their system styles, where they belong, what they need to do to accomplish and grab 2 points.
Sure, and part of that has to do with the Reign just kind of having a young team right now, guys kind of getting back into the rhythm. And so I thought on Sunday that, they were able to really grind their way out against the Rampage. I mean, it faced adversity in the third period, another, 5-on-3 situation. They could have just gave up from there and went home. But power play again, a really big story. Sean Backman with a great goal there. And then they get the empty netter and come home with at least 1 win off the weekend.
And the power play continuing to make noise and improve for the Ontario Reign. They've now scored at least 1 power play goal in each of their first 6 games this season, 44% in the American Hockey League, which is number 1 in the AHL. What about this power play continues to shine bright? Because even though if they face adversity or they hit a couple road bumps in the beginning of the contest, they're able to settle down and grab goals.
Right. Well, Justin Auger had 2 power play goals on Saturday night. A big body in front, kind of gets to those dirty areas. And then, that was Friday night, I'm sorry. And then Kempe on Saturday gets a power play goal himself. And then just like we just discussed, I mean, Sean Backman converting on the power play. So those are big goals for the team to help them kind of come along here early in the season.
And to reflect on how well they did last year compared to where they are now, the Reign with 11 power play goals so far this season, 11 for 25. Again, number 1 in the American Hockey League. Last year it took them 14 games to get to 11 power play tallies. But now, Lindsay, I mean, moving forward, it's the penalty kill, too. That's also given up a couple of chances as well. Last year, it took them 15 games to give up 8 power play goals against. They've done so here in the first 6. What needs to change up a little bit on the PK?
Sure. Well, I think, overall, the Reign maybe their stats don't look so great on the penalty kill, but I was really impressed with the way that they buckled down, especially in those last 2 games in Texas. They were the Reign of old, I thought, on the penalty kill. I mean, that was really the story last year. The story this year seems to be the power play. But, I mean, 2 goals on 16 chances surrendered, basically, in those last 2 games. So that was a positive thing coming back here home.
Now for the Ontario Reign, once again, the news off the ice. Also grabbing some headlines. Dusty Emu, the LA Kings development goaltending coach, having to step in on a PTO as his son Jonah played in that Saturday contest against the Stars, would be taken out early in the third period with a lower body injury, and then Jack Flynn would step in and then eventually go back in on Sunday to grab the win against San Antonio. But what can you tell us about the goaltending woes for Ontario as well as for the Kings? It just seems like every week something's going on with the men in between the pipes.
Yeah, I think the big thing was that Stuthers said the nightmare just continues. I mean, Jonah Emu going down in that loss. I mean, he apparently was injured, lower body injury in the first period, tried to tough it out. He couldn't. Jack Flynn has to come in and kind of in tough circumstances, gives up that overtime goal. But Jack Flynn looked very good in his victory on Sunday, his first AHL win. And fortunately for the Reign, I mean, they brought Dusty's gear, so he was able to kind of come in and play that backup role, but he didn't have to actually get in the game.
And then last week, the Reign also added goaltender Anders Limbach to a PTO. He is now up with the Kings, skating with them, cannot play just yet. But what can you tell us about that? Because certainly if the Reign can get him and he's available to play, that'll be a huge help here coming down the stretch.
Right. Well, he was brought in about this time last week, and at that time they were told, 7 to 10 days to kind of get that visa paperwork done. So if all goes according to plan, we're kind of waiting to hear. Could be an option possibly this weekend. But in the meantime, Jack Flynn's on the ice today, and the Reign have brought back Troy Redmond kind of as a practice goalie for now.
The Reign also suffering injuries up front. We would discover before Sunday's game against San Antonio for Brett Sutter, not available to practice or play in that contest. And again, an upper body injury for him. But what can you tell us about Brett? The Reign just on the ice now, so kind of everything being still talked about and learned about from this organization, but Brett not here at practice today.
Yeah, it's a big loss for the Reign, to be honest. Brett's not out here practicing today. An upper body injury for him was going to be reevaluated this week. But I think the big thing was that line of Brett Sutter, Johnny Brodzinski, and Adrian Kempe was a very good line, at least on Saturday night. And then things kind of get mixed up. You put Justin Auger with those guys instead, move Kempe back to center. So if he cannot travel this weekend, Patrick Bjorkstrand's kind of that option. But he's a big loss for the Reign because he is a veteran presence, a guy who knows how to play the right way.
And now for Ontario, they're getting set for 2 games against the Tucson Roadrunners out in Tucson, Arizona, the newest team to join the Pacific Division as well as the American Hockey League overall. But it's an untested team for Ontario. They really haven't seen anything from them this season. The first of 12 scheduled. That is a season high, tying them with San Diego in terms of the head-to-head matchups. But Lindsay, what can you tell us about the new Tucson Roadrunners?
Well, Kyle Wood was just recently named AHL Player of the Month. He's a third round pick by the Avs. So he's been leading them in scoring so far. And Chris Mueller is another forward, a familiar name to Reign fans with San Diego last year. A player that was really a tough one to play against for San Diego.
The Reign and Tucson Roadrunners getting together again on Friday and Saturday, the first meetings of the season between the two teams. And certainly it's going to be a fun one out at Tucson Arena in Tucson, Arizona. You can catch all the action on Reign Radio and OntarioReign.com. Lindsay, thanks for joining us for another edition of the Reign Report.
Thanks for having me, Joey.